Howdy everybody, I pray you had a wonderful week. I was contacted by a friend of mine to make a 15th wedding anniversary gift for a guy. For the traditional wedding anniversary gifts, for 15th anyway, is crystal. And I was like, that's kind of tricky. I accepted the challenge because to me it would be a challenge to, try to find something to make with crystal, and obviously incorporating resin would be the only way I could think of anything I had that would mimic crystal. So I knew it would have to have something to do with resin, but then, what exactly could I possibly do for a wedding anniversary gift? So I decided to turn a bullet, make like a, like a gift box or a box using resin, and I'm using walnut for the casing portion. And this is like a replica of a 7.62. So even though it's not done to ratio, I didn't measure anything. I kind of just figured, well, I'll throw it on there and eyeball it and see how it goes. I actually made two of these, one for my husband as well, because I wanted to see, before I completely agreed, I guess, to doing it, if I could manage it. I could, get it to come together and it work out. So I did a practice run, even with the resin, because I had a few challenges with it as well. So I'll explain more about the resin portion once we get there. Here's the bullet I made prior, and I just wanted to kind of give it more, make it a little bigger, and so therefore the bullet would end up having to be a little longer. But I really thought that it would just, I don't know, sit better. That way the base of it was a little heavier. I did intend to leave the very bottom as if this bullet was already sitting in its own base, but towards the end I didn't like the idea, and plus I had something special in store for the very bottom of it, so I decided just to not do a base for it and let it sit like it was a bullet sitting by itself. Being I already had turned a shell casing, I kind of learned to go, gradually with the shape. And the reason why I say that is because I didn't measure this out. I didn't do it, to proportions or anything else. I'm kind of just eyeballing it. So I didn't want to take off too much wood, because of course you can't put it back. And the other one, I realized how easy it was to round out those sharp edges that you really want, to have those sharp kind of features in a piece. And it was real easy for me just to round them out and just make them really nice and smooth, and then you start losing the detail. So that's why I'm kind of just doing shear scraping and just trying to make sure that I'm keeping my lines, somewhat crisp, just to keep everything from just blending together. So there's not a whole lot of cutting as much as there is just shear scraping with my gouge. So I'm just taking a 55 millimeter Forstner Bit, and I just go down a pretty good ways, but I left enough meat at the bottom so it would have weight, because otherwise with the resin bullet sitting on top, I was fearing that it would just kind of fall over really easily. So I'm just using some sanding sealer, and then I decided to go with tung oil as a finish. So I didn't put any wax, any paste or anything, just sanding sealer and tung oil. Now I did do about 5 coats of tung oil. I just did one on camera, and then the rest I just did off camera. So my first cast that I did with completely clear, no color in it, it ended up a little yellow, and so Doug advised me from Pole Barn to weigh it out and make sure I weigh it so that a way it will not maybe yellow on me. It won't yellow on me. So the second casting I did, I added just a little bit of blue to it. I mean, just literally 1 drop of alcohol ink, and it seemed to help a little bit, but I can still see some yellowing. This cast is my 3rd cast, and this is the ivory and gold, because my husband and I's wedding anniversary is this past Wednesday, and it's our 14th, and 14th is something ivory and gold. So I decided to mix those two together. It didn't swirl out like I wanted it to, but it's okay. It still looked good. So for the clear, for the 15th wedding anniversary clear, I used my Cricut to cut out a white vinyl sticker with the date of their wedding on it. The vinyl didn't like to stick to the inside of this piece very well, so I had a little tricky time trying to peel that back and just being patient with it and pushing it down as I go. Now this piece didn't have to be cut exactly straight, I guess you could say, because I'm putting it back like a puzzle piece. It's going right back the same way I cut it. I did get a little bit of air bubbles. I tried putting it back in the cup so it would squeeze it back tight, but it heated up in the cup, so it wasn't the same exact shape as the cup anymore. Plus adding tape and clamping it, I was hoping would help prevent any, any gaps or air bubbles. And I did get a few, which was kind of expected, but hoped that I wouldn't get. I just cut a piece of walnut that matched the base. It's actually part of the laminated pieces I did for the base, the shell casing, to use it to glue to the bottom of the bullet, so I didn't have to use all that resin to insert into the shell casing portion. I needed an extra piece to help sink that in and also give it an overall stability so it just didn't flop out of there or fall out of there. So I'm gluing that on with fast set. I just flattened it off, sanded it down 80 grit, and then let the fast set sit on it for probably about an hour and a half or so. It didn't take very long to completely set. So like I said, this wood portion is going to insert into the shell casing, so that way I can have all the resin as the projectile, the bullet part. And it will help sink in there. It's a very long, I guess you would say, tenon, and that made it challenging because I could not turn it around and turn the roundness of the bullet without having it in the base, because there's too much wood there. It's too long, and if I put it in my chuck, it just would wobble. So I waited to the very end to do the sanding and polishing and everything to put that in there, and I used solid beeswax as a finish for this because I was going to put it in to the shell casing immediately and turn, and that tung oil takes a little bit to set and it stays sticky. So that's why I chose to just do the beeswax for that portion. Shaping the projectile was, without doing measurements and without keeping yourself kind of within certain guidelines, by doing this just by eye, is extremely stressful and difficult. I should have measured, like I said in the get-go. I should have just measured and That way it kept myself within certain guidelines, and I kind of could just go from A to B instead of just winging it. But, that's how it worked out, and it ended up working out in the end. But a lot of the shaping of this projectile, the bullet, was done with sanding because I was too afraid to take too much resin away and have to recast it all again. So I'm turning it around and putting it in the shell case, and like I said, it was just not sitting in the chuck properly because there's just too much wood on the bottom of that to hold on into the chuck properly. So this worked out. I put the tape on just to protect the shell casing from getting marred up in case the tool slipped, or sanding and stuff like that, and help protect it a little bit. I have a newfound respect for those who can copy shapes like table legs and spindles for arms and banisters and things like that. I know there's duplicators and things, but people who have developed the ability to just be able to copy a shape over and over again, or just by looking at something and they just can see it within what they're making. This is a lot. I thought this was going to be a little easier. Otherwise, I would have definitely measured out my exact measurements of what I needed. So just a lesson learned. I'm not as good as I think I am when it comes to copying shapes. But, it was a fun challenge, and like I said, it ended up working out. So, and of course, Missy, she's coming in to make sure her mama hasn't forgotten about her. She's my shop dog. My other dogs don't care to be in the shop. They'd rather be on the couch. But Missy has a fascination with being at my feet, and she doesn't mind the noise at all. So it's kind of nice. I have a little shop companion. So I'm shear scraping this because I didn't want to risk chipping it or causing more divots than what was necessary, and plus it helped me just take it slow and steady with the shaping. And I left it kind of bold in some areas because I was going to sand. I was just going to go ahead and sand it to its final shape, and just kind of work on it from there. So I sanded all the way to 400 dry, and then 400 to 1000 I sanded wet, and then I brought out my micro mesh pads and sanded all the way to 12,000. I have a buffing wheel, but the polish stuff that I used for the buffing wheel seemed to add more scratches than it did take them away, so I actually had to go back and re-wet sand it again to get that finish, and I just left it at wet sanding because everything else that I was trying to put on it kept scratching up more. So here I'm just putting it on the waste block, creating a waste block, so that way I can turn it around and turn the bullet the way the bottom of the bullet is actually shaped. So I haven't wood burned in a long time, but I felt this would be really cool to put where normally the size of the bullet would be, put the initials of the couple and their wedding date on it, and kind of try to duplicate the looks of the bottom of the bullet. I thought that would be really cool and unique. So the link for this burner that I'm using is in the description of the video, and that's below the video, and all the other tools that I use in case you are wanting to know what sandpaper I use, or the burner, or the gouges, or anything like that. And for the resin, there are discount links, so make sure you use the link and put in the discount codes, so that way you can take advantage of getting getting the products for a little less, which is always helpful. Also, a friend of mine, the Bearded X16, he does Beard Invades, so he goes and interviews other turners in their shops. It's a really cool thing that he does, and I love being able to see all of our, wood turners friends or woodworking friends' shops and how they have things set up, and just hearing a little bit about their story. So I'm going to put up in a few minutes the link for you to head on over and check out the invasion of my shop. It was really fun, and I really appreciate Richard doing a little interview and a tour of my shop. So if you'd like to see that, the link will be in the description below, and also it'll be up at the top corner. So here it is. Here's my bullet. I really appreciate this friend of mine trusting me with such a special project for her anniversary gift. It was a fun project and a challenge that I truly enjoyed doing, and I learned a lot from. So that's always the best part. And her husband was really happy about it. So that's what makes it worth doing. Anyways, I pray y'all have a wonderful weekend. Y'all stay safe, and God bless.